quite
Yes,
sick.
that's wonderful. Oh, fantastic.
Good. All right, great. Sorry about that.
No, please don't apologize. No, that's fine. So I would like to know, just introduce yourselves to me, please.
You start.
No, you start.
No, you
No,
start.
you
Come on.
start.
She's turning into an Oriental.
I know. We always do this. This is exactly what our joint readings are like. My name is Joanna Godwin Seidl. I am Joanna Godwin Seidl. I am a theatre director and an actress and a voiceover artist.
You are.
Oh,
I am.
Yeah.
My name is Saman Giraud, and I'm an actress. And yes.
And a film director.
Yeah, I've directed one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So, and you are both from England, or
No.
No.
oh, you are both from
So-
Austria? Yeah.
No, not really. So
Mm.
I'm actually originally from Iran. So both of my
Yeah.
parents are from Iran, and I was born and raised in Austria.
Okay.
So,
And I'm British, and
Yeah.
that's it. But I spent most of my life abroad, so.
Yeah, because I get the accent a little bit, that British accent.
Yeah, my accent's definitely English.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, I can hear. Yeah.
Mhm.
So you have been doing this wonderful project where you do readings. You read from. Tell me about that before I say the wrong thing. But I saw that you do these readings, and you did it over the lockdown period.
Exactly. Well, what happened is, last year in March 2020, we entered into lockdown in Austria, and Saman and I are good friends, and we worked together a lot as well. And one day we were calling each other up, and I said, I need to do something during the lockdown. I think I'm going to read online. And Saman said, oh, I'm going to read online too. I was thinking of doing the same. And I said, well, great. What are you thinking of reading? Because I'm thinking of reading 1001 Nights. And she went, no, I was thinking of reading 1001 Nights too.
Yeah.
No, it really was. It was
very serendipitous.
yeah, very.
Yeah, but
And
what
Saman-
is it about? What was it about the specific? Is it a book that you wanted to read?
It was a book that I personally have always wanted to read.
Hmm.
And this seemed like a perfect opportunity to read it. And also, it was a nice opportunity. I personally wanted to give something back to people who were in lockdown, who couldn't go anywhere, who may not be feeling too happy. Some of them may be alone. And so it kept me busy. It was something to help keep me busy too, and give me something to do and prepare every day, because as you know, in Austria, everything was gone. It was all shut down. We couldn't go anywhere. We were stuck at home. And so it was something personal to me too, but it was also something where I thought that I run a theatre company called Vienna Theatre Project. And I just thought that it would be something that Vienna Theatre Project could give to people. And also globally, we could reach out to people globally who are in the same situation where they were stuck at home, and just read these really sweet stories, these very lovely, sweet, innocent fairy tales. That's what we thought we were doing. I did.
And Saman, what was your inspiration of reading that specific book? I mean, it's such a that you both had the same book in mind.
I know. I think there's also, I think that overall creativity is something that we can access, all of us from everywhere in the world. And I think that there's a bunch of ideas in there, and people grab at it at sometimes the same time. And for me personally, it was just facing for the first time in my life being actually somehow trapped legally, without any wrongdoing, was such a strange concept, like suddenly the freedom of traveling and seeing your family that are 15 minutes away is becoming a huge problem, And to me, these stories just reflected something that is on the opposite side of the spectrum, like carrying me really, really far away from the conditions we lived in back then, carrying you to fairy tales and different countries where there's magic happening. Just, it is, to me, these stories are the furthest you can get from the pandemic. And I really wanted to be far away from it, and also take a bunch of people and invite them. Yeah.
Well, I spoke to an actor also during this series of lockdown interviews I did, and what I then realized was that, you know, we think about the musicians, and you know, they could play their instruments well, in a way, because they were also a way restrictive, because they couldn't practice at home all the time and things like that. But what I didn't realize really is that actors, you are also very much affected, because you needed also the theater and acting, and like he also said, suddenly when you could act, but it had to be with a mask. He was speaking about the fact that you really needed the lower part of your face to act, you know, to show also emotion and so on. So this is fascinating that you thought of this idea of reading, that you could express yourselves in a way through that.
I mean, the thing is, I mean, you can. What a lot of theatres did was, you know, they were doing streaming performances. Okay, and this is actually what we did as well. When we did, after we reached about September time frame, and we kind of decided we needed to up our game a little bit and offer our audiences, because by then we'd already reached about 1 million people globally, and we wanted to offer them something a little bit more. And what you could do, or what you certainly could do in Austria, was you could give a performance somewhere outside in the what do you call it? You know, when we couldn't go out at night, not just the lockdown, curfew, in the curfew.
Yeah.
So you could actually do a performance in the curfew as long as you only streamed it and you had no audience. So then in September, very kindly, the Shakespeare and Company bookshop let us do our very first, what we call live special reading, where we actually then also had a musician, Kamyav Saderi, come along and play the Persian tar for us. And we did our first live reading then. So, and then after that, it progressed even more, so that now we've done 5 to 6 live readings in hotels around Vienna, in the bookshop. We've had live musicians on
also
board with
hotels,
also,
like residential suites, for example, the Grand Hotel or
exactly.
the Helsinki Vinci.
So we found opportunities, because, you know, suddenly, I mean, Saman and I basically closed down from work for a year. I managed to open up a premiere at Theater Drachengasse in September, and then we were closed. Then it was gone. And I've lost 4 shows since then. So 4 shows stopped. I did do one streaming show called Cafe Contagion with other actors, but it was under very, very strict regulations. And, you know, when we weren't on stage, when we weren't being filmed, same with us actually, when we did do the live readings, if we weren't actually reading, if we were moving around the hotel or the theater or the bookshop, where we always had to wear a mask. It was just when we were not reading, we were allowed the performance, we were allowed to take the mask off.
However, I think there's a really huge misconception about the business we are in, which I think came to the surface like a lot of other things during this time. And one of the things is that it is just not a job. So the reading is wonderful, and it is definitely a way of expressing ourselves, but we are still caged in, there is no movement. So as an actor, you don't only need your face, you need your entire body. You work with your physics, you work with your voice, you work with your mental strength, and within a team. And we were cut off from our team. We had to learn about light, we had to learn about audio, we had to learn about, you know, angles in camera. We had to self-direct ourselves. Now, Joanna has a directing background. I don't, you know, like, and that frustration at the beginning, I remember very clearly. It was very frustrating to me to have my cat run across, because things fall apart, to not have a decent tripod. And now it's funny, but honestly, it brings you to tears.
I mean, we had
nothing. And in any other job, people were like, oh, we have to find ways around it, and you do home office. Well, we cannot do home office. And it was quite shattering, actually, how the government was dealing with it. Like, we are a bunch of jesters, and I think that is something we have to say out loud, in Austria, the art industry was treated as a bunch of jesters who do this as a hobby. And we do pay taxes, by the way. So that is something that I take away from the pandemic, which is a nasty memory, and which is going to leave a mark, I think, in our work and how we handle our work, and also in the work of certain colleagues who might just drop out, you know.
And I think it must have been very, very difficult. Sorry, go on.
No. Say?
I think it must have been very, very difficult. Imagine you just graduated from college, you know, and you're just beginning to find a step in the industry. I mean, I have to say, when just before the shutdown happened, I had done a show called The Mountaintop, which is a show about Martin Luther King's last night on Earth. A beautiful show. We had standing ovations every night. The presser came in. I had full-page articles. There was so much buzz around it. It was a really, really great show. I was going to go on and do great things afterwards, and then suddenly, boom, you know, you're closed down. And it takes, as an actor, it takes, you know, networking is everything as an actor. You know, you do a lot of your networking after the shows. You do a lot of your networking at premieres, going to other premieres, meeting people. You know, I know friends who got, you know, lead roles in West End shows just because they happened to be at this premiere and just happened to meet the casting director who went, you know what, you'd be perfect for that role. You know, and suddenly all of that is stopped completely, and that makes it then very, very difficult in the entertainment industry, because it's all closed down. And I do have, you know, I have a friend who's a West End actor doing some of the lead roles. He's worked as a nanny for the last 6 months to make ends meet for his very expensive London rental prices. You know, so it's been really, really challenging on that scale, at least.
Yeah, I mean, I speak to artists from all over the world, and of course everybody has their story, and every government deals with it in a different way, and every sector also, you know, it's the dancers and the actors and the musicians, and so this readings that you did, can you see something positive coming out of it, because you've connected now in a different way to your audience? You know, it was more a closer connection that you had.
Would you want to say what it brought to you? I already know what it brought for me.
Well, I think we didn't connect in a different way to our audience. I think we connected also to a very different audience. It's an audience worldwide, from Guinea to all the way to China, to everywhere, really everywhere. And I think that's
lovely. That's
very, very lovely and enriching.
We had lots of positive feedback. We've reached now, roughly, since we started, we've reached about 3 million people globally. That's how many views we've had.
Yeah, that's something
that
very
was something
different.
Really, and it was something, and the positive feedback we got, the gratitude from people we got was a lovely thing to know that we were able, you know, people said to us, it's lovely just to go online in the evening when we're stuck at home, and just for half an hour to an hour, depending how long we read, just watch you and listen to your voices, and you were always so refreshing, and it was just a very comforting thing to do, which for me was something that was really lovely. And reading the stories as well, some of the stories are fantastic. I mean, they really are. Some of them are a little bit, but just a really, really interesting read. The history, you learn a lot about Middle Eastern history, which I didn't know. You know, you learn a lot about Islam, which is really interesting as well. We were so lucky that we got Kamyab Sadiri to do this beautiful, beautiful music for us. We were very lucky that we got to go to these lovely hotels and perform there, and they were always very supportive. People were very supportive to us. And actually what I discovered, and this is a funny story, I had to do a voiceover about 3 weeks ago now, and it was 5 pages long. And the company that I was doing the voiceover for reserved half a day for this voiceover, thinking, well, it's 5 hours, it's 5 pages long, you know, she's going to need such a long time to do the voiceover. I was done in an hour and a half, because now I can read so fluently, because I'm reading every night so fluently. So that was something. And then all my actor friends were like, well, I hope he was paying you pauschale, you know, all in one go and not per hour. And I went, if he'd been paying me per hour, I would have taken a long time to read, trust me.
Okay, yeah.
So that's super. It's just, and also it's intellectually, it's been really, really good just to keep the mind stimulated, still be out there on the market, actually, and show that you've been working, show that you've been on your game, show that, you know, you didn't kind of, although of course it got to you, but you still did something while everything was closed down, that you still, you know, did something that was entertaining, that you still gave a product, that you still sold something and put yourself out there on the market that actually could be seen globally. That's not a bad thing. And we've had lots of positive feedback as a result of that. Of course, it's not the same as doing in theatre, because it's just not the same. But yes, that was very positive.
Another thing that was enriching is like really we're reading, oh yes, please, that we are reading actually as the first people apparently in the world. We are reading the original 1001 Stories, the translation by Sir Richard Francis Burton, which is the most extensive one. So that's 17 volumes of book, which is going to take us approximately 3 years to read. We're the first ones to do so. So what is going to be enriching, not just for us, but also for future generations, is since we upload everything and we use really good hashtags, and you can really find the stories. Anyone who would like to ever find a specific story from that book is going to have access to this material. So that's another thing that's enriching, not just for us, but for anyone else in the future. No one's ever done it before, and I doubt anyone else is ever going to do it, just because
it's a long read.
And the other thing that I found enriching is that we were both very, very surprised at the topics that pop up in 1001 Nights. So it's very far from Aladdin and his little lamps.
It's not Disney. It's not.
But I think the range of the topics is very enriching, and it takes away that edge of like what the Middle Eastern and Islam is, because the condescending picture people have nowadays, like, oh, you know, in the Western world we're so you know. And after all, you look at these stories, and they're written from, they're very, very old, and they're extremely modern, to a point where I wouldn't say I can keep up with it. Quite frankly.
Oh, really?
So that's quite eye-opening.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting social concept, actually, or a social construct about women. And we actually had this discussion just the other day with somebody who's going to be doing a show with us, a 1001 Night show with us this coming weekend, about who Scheherazade is and what, as a female, she represents. Because on the one hand, of course, you know, she's this kind of a subjugated female. She has to find her way around living with this man. If she doesn't find her way, she's going to get her head chopped off, because everyone else before her has. And so in her storytelling, she's keeping herself and her sister alive. At the same time, she is able to manipulate him and use her intellect and her intelligence to keep him so amazed at who she is, and so amazed at her intelligence, and so amazed at her intellect, that she ends up actually having power. So it's this real double-edged sword that we as women face on a daily basis still now in modern times.
Telling stories to magically keep ourselves alive.
But certainly finding our, you know, having to, I mean, everyone does, of course, in life, but particularly as women, to have to navigate ourselves through a male-dominated society to a certain extent, certainly as far as the power structure is concerned, and to navigate our way through that to be able to succeed.
And in the case of Scheherazade, you can see that even back in the days, it took 17 volumes of stories to keep ourselves alive.
So that for me has been something. This is a really, really fascinating discussion that we had actually with a Palestinian friend of ours the other day, you know, because he wrote a play, sort of like a post Scheherazade play, and it was just the construct of how he felt Scheherazade should be afterwards and how she really was. And that was a really interesting, particularly also because it came from a male point of view as well, versus our point of view, which is very much seeing the way she was able to use her intellect and her intelligence to survive, which is very interesting. Yeah, it was good. I found that lovely.
So, and do you think so you will carry on reading now? Because
we
you
will
said
continue. We are, as mentioned before, we are the first ones to do it, and we are planning on continuing reading this and really finishing it.
I mean, so you can actually find somebody read up to volume 4, or different people read up to volume 4 from some reading society, but it's only hearing reading.
And
it's just
it's not
volume
visual.
4. It's 4 volumes.
But we're already on volume 5, and we're gonna read the whole lot.
Yes.
We do it live. Up until recently, we've been taking a little bit of a break because things have opened up. You know, we've had other things to do as well. But we used to read Tuesday to Friday every evening at 9 o'clock in the evening. And then once every month or every 2 months, we have these special readings where we go somewhere, we have live music. Kamyab comes along and plays his guitar and sings. And we would really like to keep that going. What we do need, though, is money, unfortunately, isn't it? Because that's the real ball breaker on this right now, is that, you know, we've been doing this against donations only because the government didn't fund us. We did actually apply for funding, but we didn't get it. And
Which is too bad.
So we need some rich benefactors, don't we?
No, it's fine. As you can see, we got it rolling up to now, which is more than other people can say. So I'm very proud of us, actually.
Yeah, no, we are. We're really, this has been such a learning experience for us as well. I mean, when Saman said earlier on, you know, we had nothing to begin with. I mean, we literally took our cell phones, propped them up against a book, got whatever lights we could find in our separate living rooms, because we didn't even read, we didn't see each other. We couldn't see each other because we were in lockdown. So for the first 3 months, right, we didn't even see each other. And then I think we could see each other for a while after.
And we can't see our audience.
So we just did it. And then one day, I bought myself a stand to hold my camera on because I got fed up with book experience. And then one day we decided, okay, we're gonna throw 50 euros at this, and we bought some lights as well. It's more than 50 euros, but then we bought some lights.
Of course, it's more.
So we, you know, gradually we got a little bit more professional as we went along. I mean, it's still what's that? It's still a little bit bootleg, the whole thing, isn't it?
It is.
Because we don't, you know,
But isn't it that makes it also lovely, that it's just like that, you know? It was, I think, many things that happen.
Sorry, no, yes, I love it. I absolutely love
I think many things that happen in lockdown will be treasured for that, you know, that it developed from nothing, and that it were people that just in the moment started doing things like that. And I think it's part of the process and part of the development of what you are doing.
I think what the lockdown forced a lot of artists to do, and I know that also from colleagues and so on, it forced them for themselves to find alternate ways to entertain and work together. When we were, for example, you know, I had the first show got shut down in October last year. Then I was going to do the Mountaintop, a rerun in February because it was so popular, and that got closed down. And then I had this theatre space for 2 weeks where nothing was happening. But the theatre, I decided that for that time period had been streaming. So I called up a bunch of actor friends, and I called up the theatre. Actually, I went in for a meeting with the theatre because, you know, they're an office, they could work. And I said, well, look, we've got these 2 weeks where we're not performing anymore because the Vienna Theatre Project we can't do the Mountaintop. What about, and also the agents didn't want to give it to us because it was such an important piece. They didn't want to give it to us to do streaming with. And I said to the theatre, well, you know, what about if we just put on, I don't know, an evening of monologues and song or something, we live stream it. And they said that sounds like a great idea. So we got 9 actors together. They absolutely, you know, we met one time in a group because we were working. We were allowed to meet then, okay. And we got together once, all under very, very strict regulations. And then I met them once at a time and rehearsed with them. I directed them. They rehearsed. I did one monologue myself. And then one of the other actors is also a musician, played the piano, so we had some songs as well. And everyone just loved, just for this one moment. It was just 1 hour that we put out online for people to buy if they wanted to. But we really did our best shot at making it under the circumstances as professional as we possibly could, and just getting out there and doing something again, kind of like the 1001 Nights, you know, finding an avenue to be able to show that we can still be creative despite all the restrictions forced upon us.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, at the end of the day, nobody wants to be in this situation. No one.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
the government's not responsible for this. The Austrians aren't. No one's. You know,
Mm.
we can maybe blame some bats or a chemistry lab. We don't know, right? But to try, certainly to do your best you possibly can under very difficult circumstances to try to make something out of the situation and not to fall apart, to keep going. And personally, for me, I certainly found with this is that it really, really helped keep me going. You know, we always had to look good for the readings. When we did the special readings, we had to look even better, make a real effort. We were very organized. We had meetings beforehand. We did Excel chart with, you know, processes. We wrote COVID processes for COVID response and how to behave. You know, all these things that kept us intellectually stimulated, which is a great thing.
Yeah, I think, and I think a lot of creativity came from this.
It's important. No, it's important.
No, it is. I'm joking.
A lot of
I'm
creativity.
sorry, we didn't hear
from this. Yeah, a lot of creativity came from this time because of this, you know, because of thinking and thinking a little bit out of the box and trying to do new things.
Yeah.
And of course, I think it was also nice to dress up, isn't it?
Oh, it was fantastic. You know what? We had some beautiful, beautiful dresses.
Really?
Luckily, we know some very, very lovely friends who are also very supportive to us. First
Partners, actually, also. Like not
partners.
friends, like partners, like business partners. The Kempinski is not a friend.
No.
We like the Hansen Kempinski is a hotel chain, a high-end hotel chain. The Grand Hotel, we're extremely grateful to partners like that. For example, Marcos Valenzuela is a friend of Joanna's, who's a very talented fashion designer, right?
Maurizio, that's what we're talking about. So they lent us their clothes. You know, they were very, very kind and said, sure, you can borrow. And you know, they said, yeah, you know, we called them up. And another friend of ours, Doretta, who's actually a wonderful, wonderful singer, but she's also really, really into fashion and so on herself. So I called her up and said, you know, could you help us out? And she's also very close with another mutual friend, Maurizio, and he's an haute couture fashion designer. So both him and Marcus were. But we got to look like princesses for a night, which is, you know, when you're stuck at home, when you're stuck at home for 3 months, and you can't go anywhere and you can't do anything, just those few hours of being able to wear a beautiful dress.
It's like going back to what I said at the beginning, like ending up from one extreme in the other. Sorry. Like going from most of us being in homeware or loungewear or pajamas, going to that one night of wearing a gown.
I'm sorry, I never wore pajamas. I always
you didn't.
I just make sure
Everyone says you're looking bad in your pajama.
But I must say, Maurizio's designs are exquisite. I just love them.
Have you seen our dresses? They're beautiful.
And it's also, you know, like I think one of the things I really appreciated is that we worked together. We managed. What was new to us is like we managed to work together with different industries who are also hit maybe as badly as the actors industry or theater industry. So we worked with fashion designers who lost seasons, who lost the wedding seasons, fall seasons, and all of that. And the clothes were there. We lost. We worked, with a hotel industry. We're still working. Whose hotels were simply empty because there were no tourists, you know, or business travelers. And we worked, for example, with a bookstore that was shut.
I mean, when we went,
they opened for us to have our reading. So that cooperation, like between the different business areas, I think that is something that's truly.
I mean, when we went for our first meeting at the Grand Hotel, we had to go down. You know, you go down into the garage, right? So we parked downstairs in the garage, and we went. There's a back door through the garage to go to the Grand Hotel. And so we rang on the doorbell. So we went to the garage door of the Grand Hotel, rang on the doorbell, and she said to us very politely in German, "I'm very sorry, you'll have to go round to the front entrance. We can't let you in." So we walked off, and then I looked at Saman and I said, "She mustn't realize we're coming for a meeting. Let's go back and tell her we're coming for a meeting. Then she'll probably let us in. She probably just thought we were some waifs and strays." So we went back to the door and we rang it on it again. She goes, "No, I really can't let you in because the electricity is shut off in the lift." Can you imagine?
No, can you imagine
for certain areas.
For certain areas. But the thing was, you know, the poor hotels have also suffered so badly. I mean, you imagine the Grand Hotel is on the ring. You know, these hotels, the Kempinski, beautiful, beautiful hotels that are normally packed with wonderful, lovely tourists. And, you know, for them, they closed floors down because, this is known throughout Vienna that hotels, either closed down completely or just had a bare minimum of floors open. Because and we were happy to see them. We were so happy to go there, and they were so happy to see us. And I think we were just all really deeply grateful to be able to give each other something in these really weird times. I mean, who knew that this was going to happen?
Exactly. But I find things like that, for example, to think that was possible. It would probably not have been possible in any other time, but you managed to do that. And I think that would be from this time very special things that you will always remember, and that will always be from this time, because in any other circumstance there would be too many tourists. You would probably not be able to use that space, but this is just a one-off, and you have that memory, and you have the footage, and you have this connection with this hotel. So I think there are many things in from this time that we will look back on and think, wow, look what we've done, or wow, look where we were. And
I think it would have been possible under normal circumstances too. Working with partners such in fashion is such a usual thing to do, a normal thing to do, I would say, like standard. Working with hotels was probably new. And you're right, with like having more tourists and everything. However, I'm not sure how often presidential suites are booked, but I truly and firmly believe that if you have a portfolio that stands out, that shows that you're a professional, like in any other industry, that is regarded as high, and you get the trust. I think that even though tourists were missing and maybe a presidential suite was free, I doubt that a huge hotel that is so well known, such as the Grand, would have let us in and trusted us with the presidential suite, the heart of the hotel, if our portfolios would have been minimum, or high, we would have been beginners. So I think it's got a lot to do, like in any other business, right? It is a form of trust, but you don't just give trust. You want something in return. That our portfolios speak for themselves, and we were trying something new, born out of the circumstances. But I do believe it would have been possible under any other circumstances too. It's just that the taste of it was very, very different this time.
It's like I once saw this beautiful, a very sad documentary actually, and it was an American reporter from, I don't know which news agencies it was. It might have been Reuters or something. Anyway, he went to Syria, and he was in Damascus, right? And literally, there was this one moment where he was in the middle of Damascus, and he was a clubbing on a rooftop of some really trendy club in Damascus, and you could actually hear the bombs flying overhead. But everybody was having the best party of their lives, despite what was going on. And I think for me, to a certain extent, having been able to do this in the pandemic, despite all the restrictions, being able to create opportunities for the hotels, for the fashion designers, for the photographers, for us,
for the musicians,
to be able to create an opportunity to promote yourself in a certain way, and also to give something to society.
Because we created actually a new form of performance. Because what we're doing is not just reading. It's one of my friends actually said it's like epic theater. Well, we do that anyways. But I mean, like it's a new form of performance, and I think one of the reasons why we didn't get the funding so far is because it doesn't fall into literature, and it doesn't fall on the theater. It's an old form that unfortunately is not. It's a very old form of art actually that used to exist, not online obviously, that used to exist, but it is a bit forgotten, and we're bringing it to life in a modern way, using the internet, using fashion, using original music. And I think that's really something like wonderful.
That's true.
It's a really new thing.
That's really true, and it's really interesting actually, because this is, back in the day, the bards of the world were really highly valued people who told these stories, and people would sit in large groups at the end of a major dinner and listen to these people telling stories. Who has the concentration ability these days? Because normally, you sit in front of the screen, and every 2 minutes, and not even every 2 minutes, every 10 seconds, a
Yes.
new angle of a
True.
scene take is shown to
Yeah.
you. So this
Yeah.
sort of just constant sitting there, listening to a voice and looking at a person and just listening to them read is such an old-fashioned concept, which is actually, however, really beautiful.
It is.
You know, and especially when Saman's cat would walk across her lap in the middle.
Really? Oh, that's so sweet.
It was lovely. Or my son would suddenly come in the middle of a
Yeah.
reading. My son would suddenly walk in and go, "Oh, hello, everybody."
Oh, shame.
A couple of times. It was very organic.
Yeah. There
Yeah,
were
but
plenty of
that's-
bloopers.
Yeah, I think that's lovely that that happened because, I mean, that was at home, so it's supposed to happen.
It was a very. That was also one of the difficulties to work usually not in your home,
Mm,
and then suddenly people enter your home, and your
Yeah.
audience is at home, and you don't see them, but they can see you. There's something so utterly strange about
Yes,
it.
it was strange.
To get used to that fact, like, all right, I'm going to take one corner of my room, and I decided to use one corner, and I'm going to stay there no matter what, because I don't have audience in my work, you know, like
Yeah.
at home.
Yeah.
My workplace is where the audience is, not the other way around. So
Yeah.
that was so strange.
My whole family became involved because luckily we have a fireplace, and then then I actually moved to my office, which ended up being a little bit more comfortable because the doors can close and everything, and our living room is very open plan. But we do have a fireplace in there. My husband, whenever I was reading and it was winter, my husband would go, "Oh, shall I light a fire for you? We've never lit so many fires as we
Really?
did when we
Oh,
were doing one." Yes. So my
yeah.
husband always beforehand, half an hour beforehand, he
Yeah.
would light the fire, and then I would have the
Oh,
fire
that's
burning.
lovely.
You have to watch them online. You can see them
Yeah.
on YouTube.
Yeah, if you just
On
go by
Facebook.
date, you'll find ones. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
I are.
And lovely, yeah. So I would have the fire burning, and sometimes, I would just leave the music going on in the background after I'd finished reading and talking, because these things I talk a lot. And it's true though. And I would just leave the fire going with Camille's
Yeah.
music in the background. I would turn all the lights off, and just so that they could just watch the fire and listen to the music. And it was, and people loved it. I had a couple of
Yes.
comments afterwards
Yes.
where people say, we got marriage proposals. And we had a lot of
Really?
marriage proposals.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's funny.
We had-
People are so sweet though.
Yes, they are. And
Did we have marriage proposals though?
yeah, we had a couple.
Wait, we
Yeah,
didn't.
we had a couple. Well, what happened then is, I think in one of our first special readings, where we were actually together, we said, if you want to give us money, donate, contact us. And, we told them they could write to us on Vienna Theatre Project Facebook and so on. And all of a sudden, we had 300 very lovely people writing to us within a 24-hour period, also making friend requests for us privately, which is an absolute no-go, and we really don't take on that. And some of them would write in unfortunately languages that we didn't understand. So in the end, what we had to do, because we couldn't answer all 300, it was just too much to do. So in the end, we kind of changed our auto reply and said, thank you very much. Please write to us in French, German, or English if you want a response. And if it is anything to do with helping sponsor us, or
we just basically said that we're going to reply in a time frame that is doable for us.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Great, but this project sounds so lovely, and thank you so much for sharing all this with me, and
thank you for asking us to do so.
keep reading for the next, how many years do you? Yeah. Yeah.
Another two, maybe.
Everybody sponsors. Yes, another 2 years.
Probably another 2 years.
And
We're
2
on
years.
book.
Yeah.
It seems like it should be longer though, because we're on book 5 for. Yes, it's about going to be about 2 years.
About
We're on
2
book
years.
5 now. We started last March, so it'll be about 2 years. We are actually, for anybody who's in Vienna, and if you want to come and join us,
Yeah.
this Saturday evening, we are going to be, because Kultur Sommer Wien asked us if we would perform live. So we are going to be on stage in the 14th district in Mutsamgasse at 8 o'clock in the evening.
It's from 8 to 9, yeah.
Yeah, we are going to have live music with Kamyat and Bijan on the Persian tar and guitar. We are going to have Palestinian poetry.
We're going to have an Indian temple dancer.
Doing traditional Indian dancing.
Yeah.
and we are going to be reading. So that'll be at 8
that would
p.m.
be lovely. Yeah.
And we're going to do online as well. So you'll be able to watch it online on Instagram or Facebook, or you can come to Samgasse
But
and watch it.
if you can come in person, it will be awesome, because this is going to be the first time we're able to read with an audience.
Oh,
Very
really?
real
Oh, that's
in-person
Yeah,
amazing.
we haven't done it
We've
yet.
never had
We
it.
can't. We've not been allowed
This is
to.
fantastic.
We're
Oh, that's
never allowed to have an audience.
Yeah, so that's going to mark a very fresh, like, new chapter in our
Yeah, it's going to be really exciting, and we're very, very grateful. We have some beautiful, beautiful. You just have to find out Facebook.com/Vienna Theatre Project, and then you
Okay.
can find out all about
Yes.
it. There's an event up there. There's an event up on the Kultur Wien Sommer.
Yeah, Kultursommer Wien.
Yeah, it's up
You'll find it
there
on
their
Facebook,
website.
just on
Yeah.
Facebook.
okay. Wonderful. Okay, no, that is
Well, we
that,
hope to see you
yeah.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
do come and
But-
join us.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Thank you so much, and have a lovely evening. And it was so lovely
Thank
to
you.
see you.
Bye.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.